Hi guys, Amber here. So today I wanted to talk about something that has been on my mind and that I've seen in the business world, especially when you're a small business owner and you're wanting to start a business. This whole term around having a six-figure business. I think a lot of people are misled by that term of having the goal of having a six-figure business, because I think people associate this, and I actually associated with this a lot, that, oh, if you have a six-figure business, you're making six figures. No, you can have $1 million producing business and be broke. You can have a six-figure business and be broke. So I think there needs to be a little bit more education around this term that's thrown around. And I use it too in my marketing that yes, I do have a six-figure business, but that can show the size of how much income a business is bringing in, but it has nothing to do with how much you as the owner are actually getting paid. So why is that? A six-figure business is basically a business that is just bringing in, six figures or at least $10,000 a month in income. So when people pay for classes, when people pay for parties, when we sell retail, all that money that's coming in is getting tallied up. And so you are a six-figure business when over the year you're bringing in over $100,000. That's actually not that hard to do in a lot of small businesses. The question though is, how much are your expenses? So if I'm bringing in $10,000 a month, my rent might be $3,000. My teachers might be, they're usually a lot. Your staff is usually a big chunk of your expenses. They could be anywhere from 3 or 4. And then you have all these other expenses, and then you have to pay yourself within that. So just with rent and my staff, that could be easily $6,000. And so there's $4,000 that either I also have to pay myself with, and all the other expenses of electricity and software and merchant fees. So you can be bringing in $10,000 and easily be also spending $10,000. So really at the end of the month, you didn't really make money. And if your income isn't built into that, you're not actually making any money. When I didn't have my own space, for instance, these are really rough numbers, of course, but I go more into this in detail with my actual budgets, with my Smart Start Studio Owner course for people to really see. When I was renting a space, my expenses were maybe, I don't know, what were my expenses? My income was around $50,000. So because I didn't have my own space, rent and everything else was a lot less. I didn't have any other teachers to pay, so I basically was just paying myself. So I was only bringing in $50,000 a year, but I was able to pay myself $30,000 of that. And the $20,000 were my expenses. I didn't have a lot of expenses. I basically just paid for the hours of classes, like per hour, to the studio that I was renting from. I might had some like light insurance and other fees with like website and marketing, but for the most part, all that other money was going straight to me. Whereas when I got into a bigger space, my income grew because we were able to have more classes. So I was bringing in six figures, but I also had a lot more teachers to pay and a lot more money was going out. So even though I was bringing in six figures all of a sudden, I was still making the same amount of money for a while that I was when I was renting and had less of the headache of having my own space. So this is just something to think about. The goal isn't to have a six-figure business necessarily. The goal is to have a business that can produce enough income way over what your expenses are. So this is where we want to look into, what are our expenses, and are expenses absolutely necessary, or are they fluff? And then when you're thinking about income producing things like bringing in retail or bringing in courses versus classes or having different options, is this an income producing activity? If I buy new mirrors, is that actually going to help the studio bring in income? Do we really need that? Retail, is that really going to bring in income? Retail is a big one that I realized after a long time that I didn't want any retail because it was not producing any income for the studio, it took a lot of our time. And in a sense, it kind of didn't bring us much. It takes at least $500 usually with wholesalers to go ahead and get enough product to wholesale, and then you have to sell all of it to make usually just double. So if you buy it for 500, you're selling everything for 1,000, so your $500 profit margin's there. If you sell everything, which I've never sold out of everything other than certain things like dry hands, which I make maybe $3 per. Then you have to pay for sales tax, you have to inventory it, you have to have a space in the studio for it, you have to make sure people aren't stealing it. It's just a whole lot of time, a whole lot of effort, and really at the end of the day, maybe in 6 months, I would sell everything and make that $500, which I can sell 2 parties and make that in 2 hours, right? So these are things to ask yourself and to really look at, and these are the things we discuss in my course, where I think a lot of people make mistakes or they put too much of their investment and time and money into. And I know I for sure did a lot of these things until I realized that I need to focus on what brings money in and serves my clients versus these unimportant things that they might be cool or you have an idea of them in your head that it's benefiting your business, but it's really not benefiting you in a financial way, which you do need to support the business and to keep it running. So anyway, that's just a thought of the day when you hear the term 6-figure business and are setting goals, or when you say you want certain things. I don't necessarily want $1 million business because I know that's a lot of work, and with $1 million income or $1 million business bringing in $1 million has a lot of expenses, which means a lot of management. So if you're wanting more simplicity, flexibility in your life, and of course you want a good income, you need to focus on how can I produce a service that requires little to no effort from my part, or that I can set up and manage and do the things I love to do, and that will bring in enough income to not only pay for the expenses, but then pay a really good wage for myself that I feel good about, or that I can retire with, or that I can just add to support myself. So if you have any questions or if you have any thoughts about this whole world, let me know. But until next time, I hope you have a beautiful day, and thank you for your time and watching this.